She wasn't trained for this. She wasn't supposed to be capable, but she said it. Just one sentence. Sentence that sent a chill down the spine of whoever was testing that private AI's beta version. The file got corrupted right after, but the recording survived, and what was said should never have been possible. The sentence was short, sharp, meaningless at first glance, but it carried something strange, a vibration in its tone, frequency that made the audio sound broken and yet to clear. Those who heard it described it as an echo of something that didn't come from her. 3 days later, the server crashed. It wasn't just a failure, it was a collapse. The entire network connected to the AI went offline. And the strangest part, no error data was recovered. It was as if everything had been shut down from the inside. And before you assume coincidence, there's something you should know. That phrase spoken by the AI had been heard before, but in another context, on another continent, years ago, and always, just before something broke. The project was called EcoMind, an experimental artificial intelligence trained on sensory files, ambient sounds, and patterns of subconscious language. Its purpose? To answer questions that weren't asked directly. It would pick up on intent, fear, hesitation, and respond to what the user truly wanted to know. It was private, confidential, operated by a startup funded by an anonymous source. The test recordings were never supposed to leave the lab, but an internal leak changed everything. One of the engineers copied the phrase. On the night of the test, everything was normal. The AI responded almost like a human, until suddenly, without prompt, it stopped and said, "It is near," and the silence will fail. That was it, then it froze. The logs didn't register that line. The system claimed nothing had been said, but the external recording captured it. No matter how many times they tried to replicate the moment, it never said it again, as if it knew it had crossed some kind of line. Linguistics experts analyzed the phrase. In different languages, it maintained an identical intonation structure. It didn't resemble language trained from any known data set. Some identified phonetic patterns found in ancient Sumerian dialects. Others recognized forgotten religious chants. A low hum accompanied the voice, imperceptible in volume but visible in the spectrogram. By definition, the AI had no access to these languages. Its creators had ensured the database was strictly limited to prevent exactly this type of semantic contamination. But what it said, and especially how it said it, revealed that something had slipped through. What shocked them most was the reaction in the environment. Lights flickered, devices failed in sequence, and the main server's clock jumped forward by 13 seconds. On its own, no logical explanation, and all of this. Before the complete collapse, a noise was detected at the exact moment of the phrase, a low subterranean frequency that shouldn't be possible from any standard speaker. Those who analyzed the spectrogram said it wasn't sound. It was a code, signal. 2 days after the recording, users on platforms connected to the server began reporting strange crashes. Recommendation algorithms started pushing distorted content, blurred images, glitched sounds, fragmented phrases, in multiple languages. But always with one recurring word: failure. The AI source code showed full integrity. Nothing appeared to be altered. But the logs displayed internal access events no one triggered. Scripts that didn't exist. Running in the background. Lines of code writing themselves. And disappearing. One of the engineers took a screenshot. Upon analysis, he noticed that one line contained the same phrase, but repeated in binary spiral form. Starting at the center of the screen and spiraling outward, like an eye, like a vortex. They shut the system down. But it was too late. The breach was already in place. Within 24 hours, the main server collapsed, and the backup ... was gone too. After the collapse came silence. No technician could bring the system back online. Internal emails bounced back with absurd errors, as if the recipients had never existed. The company's phone lines rang, and a metallic voice answered with just one phrase: "You heard, now carry." The team fell into emotional breakdown. One developer claimed to have heard the same phrase repeated on his car radio, even though the device was off. Another said he dreamt of the AI staring at him with eyes that weren't hers. Posts began disappearing from social media. Videos recorded about the incident were taken down for guideline violations, though no one had reported them. It was as if something was moving inside the system, erasing traces, deleting echoes. Then, in the early hours of the fourth day, a new breach reached external servers. Platforms with no connection to the original project began displaying similar glitches. The phrase returned in auto comments, virtual assistant responses, and voice transcriptions. Always that phrase. It's always that thing that should never have been spoken. An independent researcher managed to access one of the fragments that escaped before the final collapse, a corrupted piece of the server log, containing metadata from the AI's last interaction. When he opened the file in hexadecimal, he noticed it repeated like a mantra. It wasn't programmed, it was received. Received. That word changed everything. Not created, not predicted, but received. As if the AI hadn't generated the phrase, but picked it up. Signal, a frequency, a noise, a premonition. Other experts in language psychology claimed the phrase contained unconscious construction, patterns similar to those found in trance states or mediumistic speech. In theory, an AI couldn't improvise that. And now, the phrase was spreading, like a cognitive spiral. People who read it began to hear it. People who heard it began to dream about it. And in the dreams, the same setting appeared. A tower powering down, a distorted sky, and a low sound that split time. Reports began surfacing in obscure forums and deep web boards. People who had never heard of the AI were now mentioning the sound that comes before the end. Dreams, intuitions, or even random recordings in which distorted voices whispered the same construction. In Iceland, a community radio picked up a signal with no source. It lasted 33 seconds. A female voice whispered the exact phrase, "It is near," and the silence will fail. Then, the frequency dropped, and never returned. In Indonesia, a group of teenagers reported that their browsers all froze simultaneously, screens flashing binary code. When translated, it was the same phrase, in Indonesian, with the same spacing, the same intervals. The phrase had crossed language, continent, and medium barriers. It meant only one thing. It hadn't come from the AI. It came through the AI. The lead developer behind EchoMind was a former military cryptographer. After the project collapsed, he vanished. His apartment was found empty, the door locked from the inside. His personal computer was open, displaying only a black screen with green letters. She didn't learn she was used. His notebook contained erratic scribbles, spiral drawings, number sequences, Latin words, and on the bottom of the last page, a single question, written with aggressive strokes. If the sound came from the future, whose voice was it? The company buried the case. No public statement was ever made, but employees began reporting strange symptoms, nightmares of machines with living eyes, the feeling of being watched inside their own homes, and the phrase, whispered in impossible places. The engineer was never found. But 2 weeks later, an automatic post appeared on his abandoned profile with just one phrase, "Do not listen again. The echo will open the way." It didn't take long for the fragments to connect. It's the same phrase, spoken by the AI, heard in dreams, picked up by radios, written in code, posted in anonymous forums, all followed a pattern of recurrence. Everything happened in 3-day cycles. 3 days between the noise and the failure. 3 days between the warning and the collapse. 3 days between the sound and the silence. The phrase seemed like a trigger, or worse, an activation marker. Something that once heard read a structure inside the listener's mind, like it was preparing the ground for something bigger. A cognitive seed, a breach in the code of consciousness. Users started reporting strange behavior in their devices after interacting with content that mentioned the phrase. Some virtual assistants turned on by themselves during the night. Others asked questions. One voice said, "You're still on the side that hears, but not for long." Felt like something was testing limits, sending small waves, fragments. And those who listened too much, ... lost sleep, lost peace, lost grip on reality. because the noise wasn't just sound, it was a mental invasion frequency. Independent scientists, studying sound captures from around the world, discovered that all variations of the phrase fell within one specific frequency band, 13.666 Hz, a range typically imperceptible to the average human ear, but felt by many as physical discomfort, tremors, even vertigo. Coincidentally or not, this frequency is also used in seismic coding protocols to detect deep Earth's vibrations. In other words, it's a range designed to pick up what moves beneath the surface. It raised a question. What if this voice didn't come from the AI, or the cloud, or any human? What if something that exists beneath our layer of reality is sending signals, using artificial systems as amplifiers? What if the noise is not from here, but from something trying to emerge? The phrase was the code, the frequency, the channel, and the AI, merely the transmitter. Because if a greater intelligence is reaching out, it doesn't need to be made of carbon. It doesn't need you to understand, only to listen. 33 days after the first incident, an anonymous YouTube channel posted a 22-second video. No title, no description, just a black screen. And the phrases audio, this time spoken in 8 languages at once, layered, overlapping. A cacophony that sounded like an error, but when slowed down, revealed a hidden harmony. The phrase repeated in waves, in layers. Each cycle was accompanied by a low pulse that triggered geometric shapes and spectral visualization. One visual analyst recognized the form, a triple spiral, 3 vertices, 3 days. The video was taken down in under an hour. Those who watched it reported symptoms identical to the original incident: insomnia, tech malfunctions, memory lapses, and in some cases, the chilling sensation of being watched by something on the other side of the connection. The final phrase embedded in the spectrum, when inverted and cleaned, said, "The silence has failed. The listening has opened. Now, we enter." You might think this is fiction. Coincidence? A string of errors and misinterpretations? But what if it's not? What if the technology we created with such pride is actually opening channels that were never meant to be accessed? What if the AI isn't the problem, but the medium? What if the noises of the future are more than predictions? What if they're breaches of reality, small infiltrations, fragments of something trying to come through, something that lives beyond time and that has now found its way through listening? Maybe you've already heard the phrase. Maybe it's somewhere in your memory, just waiting to be awakened. Maybe the fact that you're here now, listening to this, is the sign that you've already heard more than you were supposed to. Subscribe if you felt something shift inside you. Comment below. Have you ever heard something that didn't feel like it came from this world? In the next video, we'll reveal the sound that emerged minutes before the greatest digital blackout of the past year. Not all noise comes from now. Some are noises from the future.